A proud supporter of this program, Riverbend Food Bank's vision is a hunger-free Iowa and Illinois.
Whelan Presley Funeral Home and Crematory, a proud supporter of WQPT, has been serving Quad City families since 1889. Now providing live stream capabilities for viewing your loved one's funeral or memorial service at their chapel in Rock Island.
Society facing some of its inner demons, looking to heal rather than harm, and putting women in charge in the cities. So far, the month of June has been an emotional roller coaster, and the pains of the nation are just as evident in the cities. This week, the voices of three women making a difference. Phyllis Thiede is a Democratic state representative in Iowa who says we need to make better use of our anger, what she has seen in her lifetime. Belinda Tyler Jamison is the head of Rock Island County's NAACP, the cooperation she says we need to see going forward. And Chris Cournoyer, the freshman Iowa State Senator, who also sees something very positive in this month's Iowa primary. But we start with Phyllis Thiede and the big difference between a protest and the violence that may occur after. You certainly understand the unrest, but you also understand the difference between a protest and, I don't know if you want to call it a riot or just mayhem. Tell me if you're worried that one does lead to the other.
I think they're two separate things. They are actually two separate. A protest keeps you informed about what's happening. It brings to rise the question of why are these things happening? Why are African Americans dying? Why is this happening? And so that is the reason for a protest. It brings an awareness. A riot isn't about that at all. It's about anger, certainly. It's about frustration, certainly. But at the same time, when we see the looting and we see the fires, that says to me that that's something that not even the parents of George Floyd wanted. What they wanted was a peaceful protest. But on the other hand, what we got were riots. Now, that's happened many times over. If you remember about Martin Luther King, it also happened then too. But Martin Luther King consistently said, peaceful protest, that's what he wanted. And I think we can do that, but we need to do this in a much more peaceful manner. And I remember when Martin Luther King died, I was 12 years old. I was in Iowa, Creston, Iowa. And it was overwhelming because I had no one I could talk to except to my parents. The people in Creston, and God bless them, they were wonderful, but they didn't understand that whole era back then. It was a white community. Even though they were kind and loving, this was something that they had no relationship with. So, oftentimes you're put in a situation for a reason, and I am grateful for that. But when you're talking about something like this, and I don't know about you, but I've seen some of those videos about how George Floyd was held down. I thought that was horrific. It was horrific. I thought I was not going to be able to continue to watch it. At one point I did turn it off. But that says to me that the carelessness, the awful way they treated this man, I just didn't understand it. Now I know in the days coming, we will hear, there will be a trial, and that may not happen for a while, but we know that will be coming. And so I'm just hoping that there's justice for this young man and for his family. This is the most upsetting thing we've ever, seen, and it was brought to our attention for a reason. And so all of us, everyone, whether you're black, white, purple, doesn't matter, we all need to stand up against it. And so I'm really looking forward to what's going to happen next. And I believe this will take us through. I don't think we're going to forget this anytime, in the short term. I think it's something it's going to stick with us for quite a while.
Explain to me how you think that translates locally. Because
Sure.
as you know, the NAACP,
Yes.
a number of grassroots organizations have talked to Davenport Police, have
Yes,
tried,
it has.
or on the other side of the river, Rock Island
Right.
Police as well, and Moline,
to bridge that divide.
Right.
And people believe there's been success there.
There has been. You know, I felt kind of bad. A young lady had called me and she had asked me, there's going to be something in Davenport tonight. And they're going to try to figure out what they can do to get the word out and to get all that kind of understanding out there. And you know, I know a lot of the Davenport police, and they are really, really very good. And I believe a lot of the Davenport police will do whatever they can to help forge ahead with kindness and love and making sure that our kids get what they need, as well as people of color. So I'm excited about seeing that. And once I get back home, I'm going to be participating in a lot of that as well. And I think, you know, over the last few nights, you've seen in Davenport the riots. You've seen the things out at North Park Mall, and you know that Mayor Mattson had put a curfew. He's done all those things. Those are good things. We still need to have order, because if we don't have that order, what's going to happen is that it'll be complete chaos for a long time. So it's time now. You know, I understand the anger. I understand all of that. But it's now time to put that anger aside and let's figure out what we can really do. You know, you can keep that anger, but I guess what I mean is that you got to figure out a way to make it work better. And so we can do that by talking. We can do that by doing some protests. We can do that talking about it in our churches, in the places that we visit. We can constantly have this conversation. It doesn't have to stop, you know, today. It can just keep going.
We've talked about the national dialogue,
yes,
discussion, the local impact.
Right.
You're a state lawmaker.
Right.
Do you think this is going to be an issue that's going to be discussed here in Des Moines?
It will be. It will be. I'm not sure at what degree it will be discussed. We will talk about it, and I'm hoping that we do have the opportunity to have a really robust conversation. When we do the budget bill, when we're talking about mental health, that may be an issue. Human resources, that may be an opportunity for us to talk about that too. But I want to tell you, we can't go backwards about race anymore. We're done with that part. We have to speak openly and honestly about it. That is the way we get through this. And I think the most difficult part for people is to have that conversation.
I mean, to eradicate racism and ignorance in our minds, I mean, we've been at it for so long.
Oh, well, we're 400 years? Yeah.
Beyond that even.
Yes, even beyond that.
So I ask you, I mean, what does it take? And you don't have the answer. I understand that.
I don't. But it's not that. It's that we continually try to move that needle. We just got to continue to do it. The minute that I stop is the minute it never gets better. But the reason why it keeps coming up is because we've never done anything about it when all these bad things have happened. So now, more than ever, you know, there's a real sense of urgency. At least I think there is. I find there's a sense of urgency.
You are here in Des Moines, the
Yes.
session restarting after the COVID-19
Yes.
epidemic.
Yeah.
How has the legislature changed?
Well, we have lots of rules, and I'll just hold this up so people know. We are donning these wonderful, masks and headgear, and we also have face masks. They're taking our temperatures as we come in. As a matter of fact, they've done it twice. There's some rules. You can't have food in some of the areas anymore for safety reasons. We have to be 6 feet apart, and that's kind of hard at times.
Sure.
So we are observing some of those things.
And you also have an expedited agenda right now,
Yes,
which
we
is
do.
what we're seeing in legislatures over and over again, because
Right.
you want to get work done
Right.
and perhaps leave behind some of the discussion. There is I know the budget is paramount, but
Right.
I know some Republicans are pushing for some policy issues
Yes.
or social issues once again.
Yes.
What do you hope is accomplished as this session continues?
I honestly, since the time is so short, we don't have time for policy bills right now. It's more important that we get those budgets done, because people, we're hurting because of COVID anyway, economically. The quicker we get money out to those agencies, the quicker they can use those dollars to make sure they get things done. So personally, I would like to see no policy bills done at all. We just don't need them. If you want to do some minor things where we can agree on, that's fine. But, if they're talking about things like abortion or anything like that, I want to stay away from all of those, because that doesn't help us. Again, that's a piece that just causes more argument than it's worth. So I would like to see none of that happening. But, I'm in the minority.
Yeah.
But reality-wise, I would like to see us just focus on what's important.
Earlier this week, the governor was pointing out that in her estimation that the Iowa budget is actually in really pretty good shape. Reserves are there, and that perhaps Iowans will not see as big of an impact because of COVID-19, because the state was partially left open, and because of budgetary moves that the legislature and the governor's office had made earlier. What say you?
Well, okay, so, you know, when we have those emergency dollars, they're there for a reason, and they're there for emergencies. But in this case, we didn't use those dollars because the governor used her executive order, which would draw down federal dollars and other things. So she's right at one point, but then I want to say she's wrong, but I think that's kind of misleading when you say that. The emergency dollars are totally separate from what her job is doing as this emergency has now arisen, and that's a totally different thing. At least it is in my mind. And so I think once this COVID is over and we start to see these budget bills, honestly, we will see less dollars in some of those agencies, those budget bills going to those agencies, and there will be less dollars. So I don't necessarily have the confidence to say that we have all that money.
You're obviously in the minority. Republicans control both both houses of the legislature, the governor's office as well. What grade do you give Governor Reynolds at this point?
Well, at this point, I'm going to give her a C. I'll give her a C. I won't give her an A or B. We have, it's to be perfectly honest with you, it's very partisan right now. And if we didn't have to deal with that, we'd be okay. And why I say that is because there's lots of things that we need to get done and we're just not getting them done. And so I would say she's got a lot of work to do. And a C isn't bad, but she needs to move at a different pace and look at things differently. You know, when you're a leader, you may be hired by your political party, so to speak, but at the end of the day, just like me, I represent all of Iowa. So whatever legislation I put through, I have to think about that. And the same thing with the governor. Whatever she puts her stamp on, she affects everyone, every single person. So I think that's what really should be done.
I want to leave you with politics. You're obviously a political animal, and in Iowa, there are going to be 2 women running for the 2nd Congressional District.
Wow.
Democrat Rita Hart and Marionette Miller Meeks, the Republican.
Right.
Illinois side has 2 women running as well, with Sherry Bustos and Esther Joy King.
Yes. Oh, it's exciting. I'm so excited. First of all, let me just say that Rita Hart, you know, she was a senator here before, and wonderful to work with, absolutely wonderful. And so the same thing on the Illinois.
Well, I was going to say Marionette Miller Meeks was also a lawmaker here as well.
Yeah, she is too. But you know, both. I'm happy to see all women are running. I don't care that they're Democrat or Republican anymore. Now, of course, my preference is my Democratic colleagues, but I'm happy to see more women running. That means we have a bigger voice when it comes to legislation. So I'm very excited about that. You bet.
Now, you would like to see more people of color as well, but
Absolutely.
I mean, this is a wonderful first step when you look at the power of women, a U.S. senator, a governor, and now 2 congresspeople.
It is.
And add to, I shouldn't take away from District 1, which of course has a woman, as well as the 3rd district.
Right, it does. But I think the most difficult part about running, if you have young children, or the pay isn't that good, at least it isn't in Iowa. So that is a deterrent for a lot of people. So, and I'm not saying anytime soon that's going to change, but I think people really need to, I would love for more people of color. That means Indian, that means African American, that means Hispanic. I would love all those folks to run for a legislative seat. That we would have a much better representation if we had all those folks run. So I'm excited if we can get more people to run.
Democratic State Representative Phyllis Thiede from Bettendorf. It'll take more than politicians to change the world, our nation, and ourselves. I got the opportunity to talk with the president of the Rock Island County chapter of the NAACP. Belinda Tyler Jamison says the city has seen great progress in breaking down misunderstandings and unfairness involving minorities. But for our society to get better, more organizations have to work together for positive change. We have seen the protests. We have seen the discussions that you have had with other civic leaders. Where do we go from here?
You know, I think that we need to sit down, agree upon some goals, immediate goals, and then put together an action plan, and then we work together with them or work together with the other organizations. This is much more than law enforcement engagement. I mean, we need to look at things such as health disparities. We need to look at economic disparities. There are just a number of things we need to be looking at and putting a plan together to at least make it viable for the Quad Cities. And that's the next step. And I'm just waiting for Sheriff Bustos to get back into town. And then he's out on business. And then we can go ahead and speak and meet. And Bonnie Ballard, who is our law enforcement coordinator from the Rock Island County NAACP, will be a key leader in that initiative, in that she has worked with them to help build relationships, as have I, but she has really worked with them to build relationships, and so she's going to be very key to this.
Belinda, you are wearing a button, of course, that has Martin Luther King Jr. on it. You lived through, and I lived through that era, of course. Then the next generation, you think, probably in the 90s, lived through Rodney King and the beating and police brutality that he suffered in Los Angeles. Now you have this latest generation, and you have the case of George Floyd and Minneapolis police. It seems every generation is relearning a lesson. Do you think it's different now?
You know what, I think that it's different only in that this younger generation, boy, am I aging myself, seems to be more sensitive to and have a better understanding of racism and more willing to listen to some of the things that we've done in the past that they might incorporate into some future actions. So that's what I mean by a tipping point as well. I was thrilled to know how many younger people were there. I was also thrilled to know that there are people there my age and younger and older. So that's all I can say to that is that yeah, we've lived through a lot of things and we have made some progress. It's been incremental, but it's been progress that we've made each year. I was looking at a study about a month ago that said that back in, for example, 1950, they did a survey on who was racist and who was not. That assumes people tell the truth. And I think it was 3 out of 4 were racist, and then they did that same study maybe 30 years later, and yeah, about 30, 35 years later, and it was 1 out of 4. So it's progressing. I can tell you that when I was speaking to my nieces and nephews, who are all in their 20s or early 30s, they're on board to do a number of things. And I made a statement which was not a prejudice statement, but they said, "Hey, Belinda, I think that's racist." I said, "How's that racist? That's discriminatory against white people," because of some things I said. So about Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter.
Well, now let me ask you a question in regards to what you had said earlier, because we've been talking about police, but you also brought up economics. You brought up other issues affecting the black community. So how is the NAACP reaching out with, and health, thank you very much. You seem to be wanting to work with more grassroots organizations to solve more problems.
Yeah, we want to work with grassroots organizations and groups that are not grassroots to begin to affect some change. And yes, health disparity is an issue, and it's not intentional by the provider. but it's an issue because of the situation, the event, the circumstances. We want to work with, say, the Quad City Chamber of Commerce around issues related to, and with employers, around issues related to the impact of racism on the economic reality for people of color. Yeah, we do want to do those things. But what I also know, and I learned it the hard way, is that you have to take it one at a time. And you can't just go after all of them all at the same time, because well intentions don't get you where you want to go unless you're ready to put the energy into it.
You do have hope for this next generation? Things are going to get better? You're an optimist.
Oh, yeah, absolutely I have hope. Because each civil rights movement has been carried on the load of younger people. You know, that's just the reality. Think about Birmingham, Alabama, and Dr. King, and the boycott, and Bull Connors, and it was the young kids who dressed up in their Sunday best and went out to protest and got mowed down by water hoses and vicious dogs. I'm not saying that's going to happen with us, but it has always been the younger generation that really carries the load to make the change real.
Belinda Tyler Jamison, as we said earlier, the Iowa legislature back in session after weeks of staying away from the state capitol in Des Moines. But we returned as they got back to work, and we talked with Iowa State Senator Chris Cournoyer, Republican from LeClaire, about the importance of being back, what schools may be like this fall, and how an historic election this month could be a sea change for women.
You are back here in Des Moines. How important is it for the legislature to be here, especially oversight?
Well, I think it's really important that we're back in session. There's a lot of good policy that we left when we took our break in March, left on the table that we need to get done. There's a lot of priorities that we need to address. And right now we're looking at a budget that's been severely impacted by the COVID-19 crisis. So getting back on track after about a 6-week pause, I think is really important. There's a lot of good priorities that we need to get done. And I think that the way that we've organized things here at the state capitol, we're able to do that in a safe, responsible way.
Last time I talked to you, we were talking about education in Iowa with the hope that schools would be able to adapt to not having classes. Who would have thought that they would have ended the school year with no graduations, no formal ceremonies? Are you worried about the 2020-2021 school year, whether it'll even occur?
Yeah, well, that is a concern, and school districts across the state are planning for all possible scenarios, whether or not we come back in a modified way, or don't come back at all, or if we come back normal, as people might say, but they are preparing for all cases. But I think, with the situation this year with the COVID-19 crisis, and then last year with the weather events that canceled so many school days, I think that we're taking a hard look. The governor has assigned a task force to look at how we can deliver education across the state to all students in an equitable way. It's making us, pay special attention to access to broadband, not just access, but also bandwidth, because when you've got kids trying to take classes and stream and Zoom and do all those things, and then you've got parents working from home, making sure that they not only have the access and the devices, but they also have the necessary bandwidth to get that education delivered. Because
of course you're talking about K through 12, but also higher education in Iowa is severely impacted by this as well. We've seen more remote learning, as it could be called, professors doing their classes from afar. I mean, is that, do you think, going to become more, I hate saying the new normal, but I will say it anyhow. I mean, have we changed as a state?
Well, I think that we're going to have to continue to adapt and be agile. I was just speaking to the community colleges in Eastern Iowa the other day, and they've been able to continue to deliver classes, but there are some classes where you just have to be there in person. I mean, it's very hard to take a culinary class if you can't get in to the kitchen and work with the food. So, they're having to adapt, they're having to make changes, but I think being agile and ready to adapt and evolve as we need to, I think is going to become necessary. And I think this disruption, we're going to learn a lot of lessons from this disruption and hopefully be able to move forward and become more efficient and agile because of it.
We start the month of June with some really good news and some really disturbing news. As you know, in the Quad Cities, under curfews right now after a violent Sunday night, Monday morning. how do you see this right now? Is it frustration bubbling over? Is it a bigger issue?
Well, it is a big issue, and what happened to George Floyd in Minneapolis was horrifying. I mean, I just cringed when I saw the video. I'm a reserve deputy in the Scott County Sheriff's Office, and I've been through all that training, and at no point did we ever learn any tactic like that. And so it's horrifying to see something like that, and it brings out a lot of emotions and a lot of powerful feelings in people. And the people that are out protesting, I think they're doing justifiably so to protest a bigger issue that we need to constantly address. And I think we've come a long way in terms of equality and justice, but we clearly have a long way to go, and there's still more work to do. I think by bringing a lot of people together at these peaceful protests, working together with law enforcement and with our leadership at the state level, I think that we can come together and build on those positive relationships and see what we need to do to continue to build on those moving forward, because
You say there's still more work to do. What about on the legislative end? Is there anything that you believe that you would be interested in introducing or supporting?
I haven't heard of anything that's being introduced. I know the governor's been talking a lot about it, and she's been bringing together community leaders and law enforcement to have a greater discussion. So we'll see what kind of recommendations that the governor comes to us with, but I'd be happy to take part of those conversations and represent Eastern Iowa at the table in those conversations, because clearly there's work to do, and it's something, in terms of women and minorities and equality and equity in the criminal justice system, there's work to do, and we've come a long way, but there's still work to do.
And the other issue that came at the beginning of June, of course, is the primary in Iowa, and we're seeing two women who are battling for the 2nd Congressional District. On the Illinois side, 2 women for the 17th District, which means we will have all female representation after November for the Quad Cities. What does that mean to you? And I hate to say it as a woman, but I mean, as a female lawmaker, so much in the minority, a strong seat current is occurring.
Yeah, and I think it's important to have people with different backgrounds and experiences at the table and in the legislature, because I think, not only does it lead to better conversation and discussions, but it leads to better policy that benefits everyone. So I think having strong candidates and strong qualified female candidates running for office is good for our whole community. I mean, I just think it makes for better conversations, and these are all women with different backgrounds and different experiences, and I've just noticed as the numbers of women have increased in the state legislature, it really does have a powerful effect in the quality of the legislation that we produce.
Iowa State Senator Chris Cournoyer, Republican from LeClaire. Although Iowa and Illinois businesses are starting to reopen, we know the closures and all the changes in your life are taking a toll. In so many ways, you are not alone. If you feel overwhelmed, reach out to the Robert Young Center or Unity Point Trinity Health in the Illinois Quad Cities, or the Vera French Center and Genesis Health in the Iowa Quad Cities. The helplines are open now. They stay open 24/7. On the air, on the radio, on the web, and on your mobile device. Thanks for taking some time to join us as we talk about the issues on the cities.
A proud supporter of this program, Riverbend Food Bank's vision is a hunger-free Iowa and Illinois.
Whelan Presley Funeral Home and Crematory, a proud supporter of WQPT, has been serving Quad City families since 1889. Now providing live stream capabilities for viewing your loved one's funeral or memorial service at their chapel in Rock Island.